Hi, I'm Susan and I'm back with Foxy, and I wanted to tell you another inspiring story from my book, Conceiving a Peaceful World, Women's Body Wisdom, Leadership, and Peacemaking. And my book is available for $9.99 on all of the ebook, most of the ebook readers. So this story is a true story, and it's about how women tried to prevent World War I. So back in 1915, women in the Netherlands contacted Jane Addams. Jane Addams at the time was a very well-known suffragette and child advocate. And she also was very interested in peace, because around the turn of the century in the early 1900s is when the peace movement and the women's movement, which were originally one, split into two separate movements. So a lot of the suffragettes were also peace activists at that time, which is very interesting. And the tradition of peace and women's concerns being linked and being united grew out of Iroquois women and the ways in which Iroquois women influenced the whole suffrage movement and the peace movement. And I'll talk about that some more in another time. But Barbara Mann's book is a very helpful book that talks a lot about. It's called The Iroquois Women, the Gantois. So it's a very good book. Anyway, so women in the Netherlands contacted Jane Addams and asked her to work with U.S. women to form a international women's congress to try to stop World War I. And the original goals of the Women's International Congress were, one, to demand that international disputes would be settled in the future by some other means than war, and two, to claim that women have a voice in the affairs of the nations. So women, as long as the U.S. has been a country, have wanted a greater voice in governance in the United States. Women of the conference offered alternatives to warfare, including a more just and cooperative regulation of international commercial non-military trade, open diplomacy instead of covert intrigue and secret treaties, self-determination for small nations, and they supported the creation of international bodies for arbitration and conflict resolution and resolving disputes, even after conflicts broke out. So these resolutions came before President Woodrow Wilson's famous 14 points. And these resolutions actually became part of Woodrow Wilson's famous 14 points. So American women and women from the Netherlands and around the world in the Women's International Congress presented a peace petition to the United Kingdom government in July of 1914. And it was on behalf of 12 million women in 26 countries who were advocating for peace. The Women's Congress sent representatives to all the capitals of Europe, the neutral ones, the belligerent ones, the ones that were involved in the conflict. And Jane Addams went herself to London, Berlin, Vienna, Budapest, Bern, Rome, Paris, and Le Havre. That's quite a lot of traveling and quite a lot of diplomatic effort on the behalf of these amazing women. In these diplomatic meetings, all of the belligerents claimed they were fighting in self-defense, and they were afraid that negotiating would make them look weak. It's very unfortunate. So despite these amazing efforts on the part of the women of the International Women's Congress, and despite Jane Addams' personal efforts to plead with President Woodrow Wilson did escalate U.S. involvement in the war. And actually, Jeannette Rankin was the first woman elected to the U.S. Congress, and she was the only member of the U.S. Congress to vote against U.S. participation in World War I. Took a lot of courage on her part, I'm sure. The Women's International Congress met again in 1919, and it formally organized itself as a nonprofit, non-governmental organization. And it is still here today. It's over 100 years old, and it's called the Women's International League for Peace and Freedom. The Women's International League for Peace and Freedom. And its abbreviation is WILPF, all caps. You can find it on the internet. And it has been a leader in U.S. peace work for over 100 years and still actively opposes war today, including the Iraq War. So even though these amazing and courageous women were not able to stop World War I, they did influence President Wilson's 14 points. And they also created a nonprofit organization that has been in existence over 100 years and worked for peace and made many, many very important contributions to creating a healthier social structure and working for peace. Thanks for listening. See you next time. Say bye, Foxy. Bye.